Hello, everybody. It's Danny and Wanda from Deep South Homestead. And today, guys, we have two of our wonderful friends on here. We have Tag and B with us here from LifeDoneFree. They're going to be joining us here today. We're going to be talking a little bit about community, where it begins, where it ends, what are some of the pros of it, what are some of the cons, the pitfalls. I mean, we're going to talk about all of these things having to deal with community. As y'all know, here in the last few weeks on my channel, we have actually talked a lot about community, because in lieu of what's going on in the world today, there's a lot that we have to take into consideration, and community is going to be one of them. Now, y'all know, if you go back and look at my videos, I did a video quite a while back called 165 hours. Back when I taught survival, there was the simple fact that you cannot, two people cannot keep a place without having intruders come onto it for at least 165 hours. In 165 hours, your body's going to break down. I mean, it's going to happen. As a matter of fact, the teams that I've worked with and stuff, it took 11 men, took 11 people to actually keep a place secure, to keep a place safe, to keep everything intact, so that everyone was at their best physical and mental condition. Now, Tag here has worked with some different government entities, and I don't know all the government entities that he's been affiliated with. I'll let him discuss that part of it. But Tag and B, where they live at, I'm pretty sure are trying to develop community also, because they realize, as much as I do, I'm not going to be able to go this thing alone and come out on the other side the way I want to. Would I be correct in that, Tag?
Yeah, you'd be exactly correct. You know, I read an interesting study. This was a few years back, and I can't quote the name of the study, but they talked about being able to, you know, grow your own food and, you know, patrol and watch and all of those things, that it took 24 able-bodied people to be able to do it on a full-time basis. You know, I was a soldier, and I can tell you that, you know, after a couple hours of watch duty, your ability to be effective in what you're doing decreases pretty quick. And so, yeah, like I said, I've read an article that said 24. I've always kind of gone off that number, you know, 24 adults. And so when we build our community, and Danny and Wanda, know, you guys know, we've got a pretty good community down here. And, you know, on my channel, we're in the middle of a 4-part series on why to build a community and how to build a community right now.
Right.
But it's critical. You know, you got to sleep, and you just can't do it all by yourself. You can't secure, you can't plant, you can't do them all yourself. You just need community.
Yeah, and one of the, I guess one of the hardest lessons that I've ever had to learn is being able to turn control over to someone else, and being able to and being able to trust that they've got your back. If you know what I'm, yeah. I mean, that's just, you know, the way I am. And that was hard for me. I don't know about the women folk here, how they feel about that, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm kind of that way too. I'm the oldest, he's the oldest in our families. Then in my job, I worked in an office where I was over a bunch of people, had control over them. Plus I raised 5 kids. As a mama, you're over 5 kids. So being in control all the time was something that I'm pretty, you know, and I like my house cleaned a certain way and things like that. And Danny knows, we already been down this road. You bring somebody else in and it's difficult. And so as a woman, it's hard to let go. I want somebody to come clean my house, and I want somebody to cook, and I want somebody to do these things. But then when they do, you're like, that ain't exactly what I want. That don't taste like I cook. That don't look like I do stuff. As a woman, it's really hard. It's worse than a man, I think. What do you think, B?
I agree. I would rather be in the kitchen, in my own kitchen, so I know where everything is. I don't want Tag in my kitchen. I just don't.
Yeah.
But I don't want to do patrol at dark either.
No.
Yeah. Bethany, we have you know, with the community, do you have a hard time trusting the other families, you know, when other people come in, and, you know, how does that make you feel with your anxiety and lack of patience for lack of a better word.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard for me too. I have to keep reminding myself that it will be okay.
Yeah. It's for the better good.
Better good.
Danny, something you said earlier, one of the hardest lessons that I've found in life is that not everybody's me. And if I set my expectations based upon my own standards, I'm going to spend the rest of my life disappointed. And we have to learn to be kind of tolerant through it. And can I deal with someone else's BS? One of the greatest things I love about my wife is we're just best friends. The worst of her I can handle all day long. And, I guess community starts there. But I think what the advice I would give everybody is to remember that not everybody's you. And if you're going to build a community, you have to understand that. They're not going to be you. They're never going to be you.
Yeah, that was one of the things whenever I used to, I've trained men for all different types of stuff. It's one being in the construction business. I had to quickly come to the realization that when I set a man out to do a particular job, I told him what I wanted done. I told him how I wanted it done. And if I come back and he wasn't doing it like I told him to do it, the way I told him to do it, there was a period of time there that I would get extremely upset. And lots of times I just fire him out there on the spot, and then I come to the realization that everybody's brain works differently. The guy might be able to achieve the same thing that I was able to achieve, but do it in his way and make it happen just as fast as I could make it happen doing it my way. But my way may not work with his brain, because our brains may totally function completely differently. And that would go along exactly with what you were saying there, Tag. You have to understand that everybody is not you. And once we get to that point, it's like a light bulb will go off in our head if we're halfway intelligent and say, you know what, I think there's another way we can do this. We need to let each other use their skills to the maximum of their ability.
Yeah.
And two, like
And
when we're talking about couples, Danny and I, when we first got married, we've only been married since 2013, and dates always, 2013, 9 years. So when we first got together, we did everything together. I mean, at least nearly 3 years.
Yeah.
If he was cooking, I was in the kitchen with him, because he cooked to start with. He thought I didn't know how. And then if he was canning, I was in the kitchen with him. If he went out to the garden, I went out to the garden with him. I mean, we did everything together. And one day when I just looked at him, I'm like, okay, we could get more done if you could go do something and I could do something in the house. And so we finally realized at times we do a lot together, but at times I need to be doing something in the house. He needs to be doing something at the barn. And we get twice the work done.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we do a lot of things on our homestead now. To start with, we were together 24/7. I'm newlyweds, I guess.
Yeah, something that you said, Danny, just a minute ago, I recently went to Miami Beach with one of my friends. And just to tell you about this guy has a double PhD, one in physics and one in electrical engineering. So he's an incredibly brilliant man. And when we were down in Miami, we went to a escape room, one of those rooms, they lock you in the room and you got to figure out all the puzzles in order to get out. So anyway, so we were in this room with 4 of us, 3 business people and this double PhD guy, and he was lost. I mean, he absolutely struggled in this room. And the guys that the business guys, we just blew right through it. And it was interesting when we came out of there, he looked at me and he said, "Hey, Tag, you're right. There's a lot of different kinds of smarts."
Mm-hmm.
It was just a super, super profound thing. And I think this lies into what you said, Wanda, a little bit about, being a couple. There are things, me and Bethany work on a lot of things. Like, let's just talk about the garden real quick. I'll go up and put the swells in. I'll build the fence. But what gets planted when, what needs harvest, I just can't hang with Bethany. She's the boss. If she needs help, she'll come find me. If she don't need help, I'm just staying out of it. I don't understand it like she understands it. But then the opposite is true too. If you asked Bethany to stand a wall, she might struggle, she's just not going to get it plumb, line, and square, right? And you give it hell, but and so I think it's about respecting each other. There are things on the farm, Bethany's just in charge. If she needs my help, tell me what to do, I'll go do it. And then the opposite is also true.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to what we were talking about a while ago. You made a comment about it all begins with each other, you know, like the two of us and the two of y'all as a couple. It begins with us, community does. If we can't function in a civilized manner between the two of us or the two of you on our own homesteads, then how in the world do we expect to function as a community when, I mean, when the two of us can't even get along and can't make things happen? You know, I mean, that goes back with even what the Bible talks about, you know, about a man who can't even rule his own household. You know, he has no business taking the office of a bishop or anything like that. If he can't control his own house, he's got no business handling God's work. And the same thing falls true even in the community work with us like this here. If Wanda and I are at each other's throat every time we turn around and we never get anything accomplished, then how can we expect to be a part of a thriving community if we're not setting an example of how things, you know, should function? I mean, I'm pretty sure up where y'all live, actually face the same things in your communities up there. You know, it's like people look at you and say, okay, they kind of eye each other. I mean, I do that. I look at married couples. I'm like, how are they getting along with each other? Because that's going to determine how we're going to function as a community here. I don't want to have to listen to some man and his wife sit over here and argue with one another about what happened last night, or what, you know, I don't like the way you do this, or I don't like the way you do that, and I'm mad, I'm going home, whatever. I mean, I don't have time for that.
Yeah, you know, my wife said something to me years and years and years ago that always has just kind of stuck with me, and it applies to community as well. And I'll let her explain it, but how she came to me and said, "There's three people in our relationship," right?
Yeah.
Explain that.
There's you and his things that he has to do, and then there's me and the things that I have to do, and then together there's us, the things that we work together to accomplish. And
well, and each one of them need attention. I need attention, she needs attention, but us needs attention too. And I think this relates to community in that if you can get enough like-minded people together where the cause of the community is the us, where there's them, you know, there's the, you know, the Danny and Wanda family, there's the Tag and B family, but there's also the us, and the us requires an equal amount of attention as, you know, either one of them. But that was a super intelligent statement she made all those years ago. And I've just kept it in my mind the whole time.
I agree 100% with you there, Tag. You know, having owned and run 3 different businesses, I quickly realized that relationships amongst individuals is key to success. You know, if you've got one employee that is a problem, then none of it's going to function right. There's not one part of it that's going to work smoothly because of that one individual, because everybody will always be like, well, we're going to have a problem out of so-and-so, you know, and this, and you never know where they stand at because they're always a wild card. And you know, I personally have made examples out of people like that, just because every so often, if you make an example out of someone like that, it'll jog them to a point where sometimes they end up being a good employee afterwards. But then sometimes it goes the opposite way. They lose it. They just lose their cool, and you end up having to, you know, get rid of them. But community is exactly the same way. You can't have all chiefs and no Indians. You know, you've got to have somebody that's in charge. And the person that's in charge has got to not be the type of person that usurps authority over everybody in a way that he's tyrannical or like a dictator or anything like that. He's got to be able to do it in the right spirit, in the right motives, and to be, I hate to say this, but he's got to be loving and condescending at the same time. You know, I mean, he's got to be able to work with all different personalities. You know, I mean, if you don't have someone like that as a leader and willing to make a hard decision when a hard decision has to be made, and be able to make it for the betterment of the community, then you don't have what I call a good leader.
And 2, that would apply to the women. Usually the leader's a guy. 90% of the time, we'd say it would be the guy. If he doesn't have a wife that supports him And if she's arguing with him or undermining him, or she's doing something, she has to be supportive. She has to help him in any way she can. And she has to be able to handle the community also. Because when somebody comes into your house and they look at your wife and she's doing something she shouldn't, or saying something or whatever, they're going to go, I'm not going back. I don't trust that guy. I don't like his wife, you know. So the wife plays a big part. And I think probably B understands that too, where she's at. How in y'all's community, I don't know who exactly the leader is, but how does it work with y'all when you go visit with these other families?
Yeah, so it's actually quite interesting. We do what's called a homestead rotation sometimes, and that's where we'll travel to other homesteads and help with projects. And, you know, one of the things that we've come to after all of these years, and I've been part of a lot of groups and a lot of things, is we've kind of come to there's somebody in every situation that should be in charge, right? They bring the most skill set in that particular spot. Like if we were going to make soap, for example, I'm just going to do what B says, because at the end of the day, she's the best equipped, you know, to lead that. But, you know, was something you said a little bit earlier, Wanda, which is about how most often the leaders are men. I think I would just asterisk that a little bit, that most often the face of leadership is a man. But the fact of the matter is, behind the scenes, my wife drives everything. I mean, you know, she's a huge motivator in my life, my single most trusted person I know in this entire world. You know, she can push me farther than anybody else can push me, you know, not even close. There's a famous quote out there that says, a leader's job is done when the people said, look what we did. And I think the challenge is exactly that. You know, leadership's not about barking orders. Leadership is about camaraderie. Leadership's about motivating. Leadership's about encouraging. Leadership's about empowerment. Yeah. That's what it is. And so, you know, there's nobody in this world that leads me better than Bethany, hands down, not even close. You know, yeah, so for us in our community, it's just project driven.
I agree. I was sitting here while you were talking about that. There was something that come to mind with me. I took Wanda to get her advanced concealed carry permits, you know, for her pistol and stuff. And I knew the guy who was actually doing the program and the course. I knew him. I had known him for years. I walked in with Wanda and sat down, and the guy became extremely nervous when I walked into the room. And he's the one, it's his course, it's his people that's there. I mean, I just came with my wife. I sat down in the room and he began to start talking, and he was doing a fairly okay job about things that he was talking about. But I noticed as the further he got, he fumbled and kept fumbling more. And finally he just looked and he said, you know, he said, I feel so inadequate with you in the room. He said, really, you need to be teaching this and not me. And I told him, I said, look, I'm here for her. You go ahead and do whatever you need to do. I said, you just look like I don't even exist back here. You know what I mean? You just do what you need to do. And you're the teacher. This is your responsibility. This is not, I have nothing to do with this. You know, I mean, leadership is in your position right now. You need to take hold of that, you know, and you need to accept it, and you need to move forward with it. And not feel like you're not adequate for what you're doing. I mean, and it would come to a part, he would disassemble a gun and he would hand it to Wanda, and Wanda would tell her to put it back together, and he would look at me and he'd just kind of like hand it to me, and he'd go, okay, you know, he said, if you want to do it too, you know. And of course, I would just like ratchet it. I would ratchet it all apart, you know, ratchet it back together and hand it back to him. And then we got further down the line, and when she went to qualify, he looked at me and he said, do you want to shoot too? You know, and I said, well, I didn't bring a pistol with me. You know, I said, I didn't bring a gun or nothing, you know. And he said, well, you can use mine if you want to shoot at the target. And
I actually shot better than him.
And well, she did, but
there
was circumstances. I mean, he handed me the pistol, and I told him, I said, look, I've never used this gun before. I said, because every person's gun fits their specifically, I know how my gun shoots and your gun's gonna probably shoot different. I said, all I ask is that I get one round before I actually have to shoot. And he said, sure, one round. So I lifted up, I fired one shot, and I said, okay, I popped the magazine out, and held my hands up, and he gave me the go. I slapped it in there and like, just that fast.
He didn't take one
Yeah.
shot at a time. He did them all like simultaneously.
I was like, pow, 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 pow. That fast.
and
And I laid the gun down. I jacked the magazine out, laid the gun down. And he walked out there and he looked at the target and he come back and I said, well, did I pass?
he said, yeah,
He said, yeah. He said, you actually just hit the line on only one of them.
but Wanda took her time, and
Yeah.
I took one shot at a time, and I laid it down and got it in perfect, and all mine were where they ought to be.
Now, all hers was almost in the bullseye on every one of them, where mine was just around in the little 4-inch circle.
And
you know?
almost one of them
Yeah.
almost out.
And one of them on the line. And I told her, I said, Wanda, that's amazing. You've never shot pistols before. I said,
Not that kind, no.
not that kind of pistol. I said, that's amazing to me that you could do that. And I can't repeat on here what she told me, but it had to do with previous relationships.
But yeah, and I do believe that safety is one of our biggest things
Yeah.
on a homestead.
Yes.
And I do know that, to me, to be able to shoot a gun and to know how, I think everybody, even my grandchildren, are learning how to shoot guns. I've got,
Mhm.
I know 3 or 4 have taken the safety classes, and like we
Yes.
did, the concealed carry, and they're in their teens. And they can't conceal carry yet, but they have taken the safety classes. And I'm gonna tell you what, I've got a couple of granddaughters that can outshoot their daddies just about it.
Yeah.
And my daughter can outshoot her husband. He won't even try to even target practice with her. He says, no, she's better than I am. So I think on the homestead, a woman does need that. What do you think, B? Do you shoot?
Yes, I shoot, I carry. I have a little bodyguard I carry, and then I have a Glock also. When I'm out in the garden in the summertime, I carry the bodyguard because it's smaller and it's easier to conceal in my summer gear.
Talk about your
And then I have a Glock 27,
Mhm.
and then I have an AR that Tag had what is that paint?
Cerakoted.
Cerakoted in plumeria flowers, because if it was pretty, I would carry it.
Now, the only rule was I had it made for her, but because the plumeria was her wedding flower. But the rule was it had to be in camouflage colors, but she could put any pattern on it she wanted. And so she chose the plumeria flower. So I had it Cerakoted in plumeria flowers, but in multicam colors.
Right.
Okay, so the
And it's-
plumeria is native to Hawaii, am I correct?
Yep.
It's what we have.
Yeah, I thought so.
We had those flowers.
We had one, but it froze.
I think it froze.
Yeah.
We kept one around here for probably about 6, 7 years.
6 or 7 years we kept one, yeah.
And it on the thing, it was supposed to have been
Yellow.
yellow, and when it bloomed out, it was the prettiest pink you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so,
Well, I figured if I could bribe my wife into a pretty firearm, she'd shoot it more.
that is a good,
Super
that's a
lightweight.
good concept. Yeah,
Yep. And it worked. It worked.
cool. But that goes back to community again, and not everybody in a community is going to be able to handle a firearm. I mean, that's one thing that you've got to understand in the building of a community. It's just like building a team of men. When you build a team to go into a tactical situation, you've got to have those that are really good at what they do. I mean, you don't want to put somebody who's really good in the kitchen and is no good with a weapon out guarding the place, have somebody who's really good at guarding in the kitchen who knows absolutely nothing about the kitchen. I mean, every part of a community is like your body. It's like the fingers on your hands and the toes on your feet and everything. Everything fits and it functions perfectly. Your ears are on the side of your head for a reason. They're not in front of your face. I mean, well, if you lay down, you'd smother, I reckon. So, I mean, there's a lot of different reasons there. You know what I mean? And that's the way community is. Community has to function that way. And I'm pretty sure y'all figured that out where you're at also.
Yeah, we use an analogy of the machine, and we talk about how if the transmission's trying to be part of the engine, it's just not going to work. And if the carburetor is trying to do the starter's job, it's just not going to work. And that everybody has a role, and in that role creates the machine. And if it's deployed correctly, then the machine is tuned and it's running just like it's supposed to running. And, you know, one of the biggest jobs of a leader, in my opinion, is there's a butt for every seat. And how do you deploy the strengths of everybody around you? And then how do you shield their weaknesses, you know, in a respectful, honorable way?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, me personally, I would, in a community, if I had a community got together, we would head to a firing range. And if I was a leader, I would walk around and I would watch every individual as they use their weapons. And I would make mental notes as well as notes on papers as to who did what, you know, who did what well, who knew anything, who did not know anything, these type of situations. And I would say we'd have an outing where everybody was cooking. I would watch everybody preparing meals and things of this nature. A gardening thing, I would watch people and their knowledge about gardening, how well they done something or how sloppy they did something. Because I am very OCD about everything. And when it comes to putting things together, making things work, sloppiness plays no part in my, I don't know what the word would be, but I mean, I just can't handle it. You know?
OCD.
Yeah, I just can't do it. And when I see somebody doing something sloppy, I'm like, dude, you gotta go. You know, I mean, it can't happen. You know, and specifically in preparing food. If I watch people when they prepare food, if they're cross-contaminating everything, I mean, you know, all this kind of stuff, people don't realize in a grid down situation, cross-contamination is going to get rid of more people than probably any other disease out there other than waterborne illnesses.
He got on to me. I was in the greenhouse and I picked some strawberries and I turned around and dumped them in a bowl I had. And I didn't even think, just dumped them in the bowl, and because I was in a hurry. And he come through and he goes, "Why did you put those strawberries in where you just dumped eggshells?" And I said, "Because that's the only bowl I had at the moment." And he said, "No, you could get salmonella." Was it salmonella? Yeah, salmonella from that. And I said, "You know, I was going to wash the strawberries when I got in, so I wasn't even thinking, you know, that the eggshell's been laying in the bowl for a couple of hours before I took them outside." So that's where, as a woman, I don't think about those things lots of times that he does think about, and I should think of them, but sometimes it's just crazy. You know, you have to have another person, another set of eyes lots of times. We do anyway.
Yeah, you know what? Danny, you and I align perfectly.
He won't even eat samples from Sam's Club
No.
because somebody else touched it.
No. Zero chance.
No.
Not happening.
It ain't
Or if
happening.
somebody's cooking, or if somebody's cooking in the kitchen, licking their fingers as they're
I'm out.
stirring.
I'm out.
He gets on to me for sampling stuff all the time. Like we'll be outside or we'll be anywhere and I'm picking something up, eating. And he goes, wait, you don't need it. I said, "It's okay." And he goes, no, I wouldn't try that. And I said, I'm not. It's
not that. It's the things I've seen and the things I've experienced in life. And there's some things there's no getting over. You know, I mean, you can pick up the wrong wild edible herb or the wrong wild mushroom, and guess what? It's Katie bar doors for you. You know, I mean, there is no antidote for some things. You know,
but I don't eat mushrooms.
I know, but in like the salmonella issue,
I wouldn't have thought of that. Yeah.
I mean, that's one of those things that type of cross-contamination can make you deathly ill with diarrhea, and then you can dehydrate in a grid down situation.
You don't need a sick person.
You don't need a sick person who's dehydrated and it's going to make everybody else sick. And then someone who cuts themselves with a rusty object, they're not paying attention to what they're doing, and something rusty whacks them in the hand, and you know, there you are. Tetanus is a really big issue, and it's almost always fatal. You know, I mean, it's one of those things that people don't understand. Even with animals, horse manure is one of the big ones. Horse manure is loaded with tetanus. And most people have no clue. You know what I mean? And they sit and that's why cleanliness to me is a huge issue. You know, one that gets on to me lots of times, not necessarily gets on to me, because I'm always sharpening knives, you know, and I want a knife where I can pull it down side my face and then my beard's gone, you know? And she's like, you don't need to do it quite like that, because I'm able to cut myself, you know? And I thought, I said, you don't understand, a dull knife will cut you faster than a sharp knife will.
But I like mine kind of in between. I don't want it so sharp that I can shave him, but I don't want it dull. I want it kind of in between, and he don't know how to do in between.
You know, we've got a coming up here in 2.5 weeks. We have we're going to a thing called the Midwest Preparedness Project. It's been going on now this is the 18th one.
Wow.
So we go every year. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. But to talking about the food, you know, when we go up on Saturdays, we have, yeah, she's laughing at me. We have a potluck on Saturdays where everybody brings food. And I am so limited to what I will eat, because if I have not watched them prepare food, if I have not watched their hygiene habits, if I don't know the answer to the question, I need it. I'm just not doing it.
Yep. that is me in a
She makes fun of me.
nutshell.
Everywhere we go, I have to take his food.
She takes my food everywhere we go.
I literally pack a lunch like a little kid, and I take it everywhere we go all the time. I mean, it doesn't matter, like Easter's coming up.
No.
We go to my mom's. I have to take his food. I have to fix ahead of time and take food. Now, he might eat something she has or anybody else has, but 90% of the time they put gluten in everything, or different things that chemicals, different things that's in there, and he won't eat anything that has a lot of chemicals in it. And so we take thermoses of water, and he takes his own food. Now, I will eat just about anything. I'm pretty good with a lot of stuff, but it doesn't affect my body like it does his. So, you know, he has to have, I feel like I'm preparing a kid to take, you know, how you used to have to get the bottles and the diapers and all that stuff. When we go somewhere, I have to get all the food and everything and the water and take it with me. And
yeah, I don't drink municipal water, period. As far as I know, no new municipal water has entered my body in, I don't even know how many years. It's been so many back. I only drink well water from my place, you know.
an occasional bottled water.
I might drink an occasional bottled water if I know the company that actually manufactures it. I mean, that's just how.
Yeah, you know, Danny, I'll tell you something interesting. So we have 2 water sources, right? We have rainwater and well water. And we can pull from any of them at any time. We can use them anywhere. Well, I had both sets of water tested. And this is really easy to do. I encourage everybody to do it. You can buy test kits at Home Depot. I mean, they're not hard to find, right? What was interesting was my rainwater tested a little bit better than my well water. But here's the trivia question for you. My rainwater tested positive for fluoride. As far as I know, fluoride does not occur naturally.
Fluoride, I can tell you how it got in there. Fluoride is a byproduct of aluminum, the manufacturing of aluminum. And aluminum is used in chemtrails to be sprayed in the atmosphere. So more than likely, it's coming through the chemtrails that's being sprayed in the atmosphere through the aluminum particles as a byproduct. I mean, you might have done some research on it. I don't know how close I am, but that's just an educated guess.
Yeah, and that's the conclusion I would draw as well. So anybody who's on the fence of whether or not they're really spraying stuff, go test your rainwater. That's all I got to do. The answer will become clear.
Oh yeah,
you know, just like we did. We tested it. Yep. So it's certainly interesting for sure.
Yeah, it's it's one of those things that people they just accept what's giving to them, and I guess that's the downfall of the society that we live in today, is that everybody, they just accept whatever happens. They're like, well, you know, I mean, it's probably for my best interest. And I mean, that's what people just comply. I'm probably one of those that'll be the first ones that's sent to a camp somewhere because I just, I won't comply.
Nope, I will not either.
No.
No, my wife spends a lot of time on that kind of stuff. And, we read an article the other day that talked about how the average human eats a credit card of bioplastics a week in their diet.
Oh yeah.
The size of a credit card. And so we spend a lot of time and energy, making sure that what we put into our bodies is not that. We don't use, chemicals. We, do all of those things. But isn't it amazing how the sheep just follow along and they can be fed anything? Don't question anything. Man, that's not American. The American way, I mean, the way we began is to question everything.
Exactly.
Isn't that science?
I agree with you 100%. I mean, it's like everybody today, they just, I don't guess I've ever seen everything as compliant as people are today. I mean,
I think it's amazing how, Wanda and I were talking earlier about, the events going on in the world and, the dangers and the things we're living in. We're living in just this perfect storm. We've been programming our youth, to believe particular things that are just clearly aren't true. We're feeding our bodies and we're feeding our youth in a manner that is productive in the sense of compliance, right?
Yeah.
We're not doing the things that, made America great. And we're in this incredibly perfect storm. I think our youth is, in trouble, and not all of them, but a lot of them. I mean, if you think back to the Great Depression, I mean, the people who went through that were real men and women. I mean, those people had skills. They could take care of themselves. There was just this huge thing that went on when today we don't have any of that. We ever go through another depression, we are in big trouble, big trouble.
Yeah, I don't think it's if we're going to go through. I think it's when we go through.
Right.
I was listening to I watch a lot of tractor programs to deal with old-fashioned tractors. This morning, there was a gentleman who was in his early 70s. He had like 35 tractors under his barn that he had completely rebuilt over the last 20 years. Some of the oldest tractors from the time he was a little kid, his daddy used to own. He finally found them again and got them and rebuilt them. 1920-something model tractors all the way up to the modern ones. And he was talking about one of those particular tractors there, how important it was to him. And the guy said, well, why is it so important to you? He said, well, when I was 5 years old, I was driving this tractor right here and something happened and he had to get off of that tractor to do something. And he tripped and fell and he messed up his leg when he did from an implement that was on the tractor. And he said, and it put me out of commission for like 6 to 8 months. And he said, and it really almost messed the whole family up because I wasn't able to take the tractor and do my part. Now here he was at 5 years old, operating a tractor with equipment on a farm, making sure that that family was kept stable and everything had to fit together like a glove. And because one 5-year-old got messed up, the family suffered greatly for it. I mean, today, I don't even know a 12-year-old I'd put on a tractor.
Or an 18-year-old.
Right. A 30-year-old.
Yeah. So guys, today we've been here with Bethany and Tag from LifeDoneFree, talking about a lot of different subjects, dealing with couples, dealing with community and personal community that's right around you, extended community, YouTube community, and talking about how that even on YouTube communities, we can be a blessing to one another. You don't have to just live right beside somebody to be in a community. You can actually have extended communities of all different forms and fashions. And we've covered so much ground today. And whether this will be in one video or whether it'll be in 2 videos, we're not sure yet. We won't know till we actually start editing it. But nevertheless, I think that there was a lot of good information on both parts given here today. And Bethany and Tag, thank y'all so much for giving us your time to be able to do this video. Guys, go check out LifeDoneFree with them. I think that you'll enjoy their homesteading information that they put out there and their survival information, their freedom type information. I mean, Tag brings on some excellent guests. I watch every video that they do. And I'm amazed at his connections with people that that's like-minded. I learn a lot from them just by listening to y'all talk, you know, and a lot of it's encouragement, because, you know, the guy with the heart attacks and everything, the encouragement that comes along with just because something happens to you, you don't give up.
Yeah.
And so thank y'all for taking the time to do those types of videos.
Yep, we're super excited. We're going to keep doing them. You know, from Bethany and I guess two things. One, don't put lettuce in an omelet, and hold the line.
And everybody, I like their saying, hold the line.
Yes.
I love that. I love that saying. And guys, we will see y'all later on. And thank you once again for joining us here at Deep South Homestead.